I never told my child about my substantial monthly income, even though they always saw me living a simple life. One day they invited me to dinner with their spouse's parents, who were visiting from a distant land. I decided to see how they would treat a person of modest means by pretending to be a humble and unassuming parent. But the moment I stepped through the door of that establishment, everything changed. What happened that evening devastated my child's spouse and their family in a way they never imagined, and trust me, they deserved it. Let me explain how I got there. Let me tell you who I really am. Because my child, let's call them Alex, in their mid-30s, never knew the truth about their parent. To them, I was always just the person who left early for the office, who came back tired in the evenings, who cooked with whatever was in the fridge, just another employee, maybe an assistant, someone ordinary, nothing special, and I never corrected them. I never told them that I earned a significant sum every month, that I had been a senior executive at a prominent corporation for nearly 2 decades, signing multi-million credit agreements and making decisions that affected countless individuals. Why tell them? Financial abundance was never something I needed to display like a trophy. I grew up in an era where dignity was carried within, where silence was worth more than hollow words. So I guarded my truth. I lived in the same modest residence for years. I used the same leather accessory until it was worn out. I acquired attire at discount outlets, prepared meals at home, saved diligently, invested wisely, and became prosperous in silence. Because true power doesn't shout, true power observes. And I was observing closely when Alex called me that afternoon. Their voice sounded different, nervous, like when they were a youngster and had done something wrong. Parent, I need to ask you a favor. Quinn's parents are visiting from overseas. It's their first time here. They want to meet you. We're having dinner on a specific evening at a restaurant. Please come. Something in their tone made me uncomfortable. It wasn't the voice of a child inviting their parent. It was the voice of someone asking not to be embarrassed, to fit in, to make a good impression. Do they know anything about me? I asked calmly. There was a silence, then Alex stammered. I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much. There it was, the word simple. As if my entire life could be contained in that miserable adjective, as if I were a problem they needed to apologize for. I took a deep, deep breath. Okay, Alex, I'll be there. I hung up and looked around my living area. Old but comfortable furnishings, walls without expensive artwork, a small entertainment device, nothing that would impress anyone. And at that moment, I decided if my child thought I was a person of limited means, if their spouse's parents were coming ready to judge, then I would give them exactly what they expected to see. I would pretend to be humble, naive, and struggling, a parent barely surviving. I wanted to feel firsthand how they treated someone who had nothing. I wanted to see their true faces because I suspected something. I suspected Quinn and their family were the type of people who measured others by their financial accounts, and my instinct never fails. The designated evening arrived. I dressed in the worst outfit I owned, a light grey, shapeless, wrinkled garment, the kind they sell at a second-hand store. Old, worn-out footwear, no adornments, not even a timepiece. I grabbed a faded canvas carryall, pulled my hair back into a messy tie-back, and looked in the mirror. I looked like a person broken by life. Forgettable. Perfect. I got into a ride share and gave the address. A high-end eatery in the most exclusive part of the city, the kind where the menu doesn't list prices, where each table setting costs more than the average person's monthly earnings. As we drove, I felt something strange, a mix of anticipation and sadness. Anticipation because I knew something significant was coming. Sadness because a part of me still hoped I was wrong. I hoped they would treat me well, that they would be kind, that they would look past the old clothes. But the other part, the one that had worked for decades among corporate sharks, that part knew exactly what was waiting for me. The ride share stopped in front of the restaurant. Warm lights, an attendant in white gloves, elegant people entering. I paid, stepped out, took a deep breath, crossed the threshold, and there they were. Alex was standing next to a long table near the windows. They wore a dark suit, a crisp shirt, and polished shoes. They looked anxious. Beside them was Quinn, my child's spouse. They wore a tailored cream outfit with gold accents, high heels, their perfectly styled hair falling over their shoulders. They looked impeccable as always, but they weren't looking at me. They were looking towards the entrance with a tense, almost embarrassed expression. And then I saw them, Quinn's parents, already seated at the table, waiting like royalty on their thrones. The mother, let's call her Eleanor, wore a fitted emerald green garment full of sequins, jewels on her neck, wrists and fingers. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant bun. She had that cold, calculated type of beauty that intimidates. Beside her was Gerald, her husband, an immaculate grey suit, a giant timepiece on his wrist, a serious expression. Both looked like they had stepped out of a luxury magazine. I walked toward them slowly with short steps as if I were afraid. Alex saw me first and their face changed. Their eyes widened. They looked me up and down. I noticed them swallow. "Parent, you said you'd come." Their voice sounded uncomfortable. "Of course, child, here I am." I smiled timidly, the smile of a person unaccustomed to such places. Quinn greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek, cold, mechanical. "In-law, it's nice to see you." Their eyes said the opposite. They introduced me to their parents in a strange, almost apologetic tone. "Father, mother, this is Alex's parent." Eleanor looked up, studied me, and in that instant I saw everything. The judgment, the disdain, the disappointment. Her eyes scanned my wrinkled outfit, my old shoes, my canvas carry-all. She didn't say anything at first, just extended a hand, cold, quick, and weak. "A pleasure." Gerald did the same. A weak handshake, a false smile, charmed. I sat down in the chair at the end of the table, the one furthest from them, as if I were a second-class guest. No one helped me pull out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The server arrived with the elegant, heavy menus written in a foreign language. I opened mine and pretended not to understand anything. Eleanor watched me. "Do you need help with the menu?" she asked, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, please. I don't know what these words mean." My voice came out small, timid. She sighed and ordered for me. "Something simple," she said. "Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it." The phrase hung in the air. Gerald nodded. Alex looked away. Quinn played with their napkin. No one said anything, and I just watched. Eleanor started talking first about general things. The journey from afar. How tiring the flight was. how different everything was here. Then she subtly began to talk about finances. She mentioned the lodging where they were staying, a substantial amount per night. She mentioned the luxury vehicle they had rented, obviously. She mentioned the establishments they had visited. We acquired a few things, nothing major, just a few thousands. She spoke, looking at me, expecting a reaction, expecting me to be impressed. I just nodded. "How nice," I said. "That's lovely," she continued. "You know, dear, we've always been very careful with resources. We worked diligently. We invested wisely. Now we have holdings in multiple territories. Gerald has major enterprises, and I oversee our portfolio." She smiled a smile of superiority. "And you, what exactly do you do?" Her tone was sweet but venomous. "I work in an office," I replied, lowering my gaze. "I do a little bit of everything, paperwork, filing, simple things." Eleanor exchanged a look with Gerald. "Ah, I see. Administrative work. That's fine. It's honest. All occupations are dignified, right?" "Of course," I replied. The food arrived. Enormous plates with tiny portions, all decorated like art. Eleanor cut her portion with precision. "This costs a significant amount," she said, "but it's worth it. Quality is worth paying for. One can't just consume anything, right?" I nodded. "Of course, you're right." Alex tried to change the subject, talking about work and some undertakings. Eleanor interrupted them. "Child, does your parent live alone?" Alex nodded. "Yes, they have a small dwelling." Eleanor looked at me with feigned pity. "It must be difficult, isn't it, living alone at your age without much support? And does your earnings cover everything?" I felt the trap closing. I barely replied. "But I manage. I save where I can. I don't need much." Eleanor sighed dramatically. "Oh dear, you are so brave. Truly, I admire individuals who strive alone. Although, of course, one always wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life. But oh well, everyone gives what they can." There was the subtle but deadly blow. She was telling me I hadn't been enough for my child, that I hadn't given them what they deserved, that I was a struggling, insufficient parent. Quinn was looking at their plate. Alex was clenching their fists under the table, and I just smiled. "Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can," Eleanor continued. "We always made sure Quinn had the best. They went to the best schools, traveled the world, learned multiple languages. Now they have an excellent position, earn very well, and when they married Alex, well, we helped them quite a bit. We gave them funds for the initial payment on the residence. We paid for their post-nuptial trip because that's just who we are. We believe in supporting our children." She looked at me intently. "And you, were you able to help Alex with anything when they got married?" The question floated like a sharp knife. "Not much," I replied. "I gave them what I could. A small token." Eleanor smiled. "How sweet. Every detail counts, right? The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important." And right then I felt the rage begin to stir within me. The rage wasn't explosive. It was cold, controlled, like a river under ice. I breathed slowly, kept the timid smile, and let Eleanor keep talking because that's what people like her do. They talk, they inflate themselves, they show off, and the more they talk, the more they reveal themselves, the more they expose the emptiness inside. Eleanor took a sip of her glass of expensive red beverage, swirling it in her hand as if she were an expert. "This drink is from an exclusive region in a certain country. It costs a considerable amount per bottle, but When you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you consume such beverages, dear? Only on special occasions, I replied, and usually the most affordable one. I don't understand much about these things. Eleanor smiled condescendingly. Oh, don't worry, not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, with travel, with education. Gerald and I have visited growing regions across continents. We are quite knowledgeable. Gerald nodded. It's a pastime, something we enjoy. Quinn is learning too. They have good taste. They inherited it from us. He looked at Quinn with pride. Quinn offered a weak smile. Thanks, Mother. Eleanor turned to me. And you, dear, do you have any pastimes? Anything you enjoy doing in your free time? I shrugged. I watch entertainment, prepare meals, walk in the public green space, simple things. Eleanor and Gerald exchanged another look, a look loaded with meaning, with silent judgment. How lovely, Eleanor said. Simple things have their charm too, although, of course, one always aspires to more, right? To see the world, to experience new things, to grow culturally. But, well, I understand not everyone has those opportunities. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone has those opportunities. The server arrived with sweet treats, tiny portions of something that looked like edible art. Eleanor ordered the most expensive one, a significant amount for a piece the size of a small pastry. This is delicious, she said, after the first bite. It has edible gold on top. See those little golden flakes. It's a detail only the best establishments offer. I ate my sweet treat, simpler, more affordable. In silence, Eleanor continued. You know, dear, I think it's important that we talk about something as a family now that we are all here. She looked up. Her expression changed, becoming serious, falsely maternal. Alex is our in-law, and we love them very much. Quinn loves them, and we respect that decision, but as parents, we always want the best for our child. Alex tensed up. Parent. I don't think this is the moment. Eleanor raised her hand. Let me finish, child. This is important. She looked at me. Dear, I understand you did the best you could with Alex. I know raising them alone wasn't easy, and I truly respect you for that. But now Alex is at another stage in their life. They are married, they have responsibilities, and well, Quinn and they deserve to have stability. Stability? I asked softly. Yes, Eleanor replied. Financial and emotional stability. We have helped a lot, and we will continue to help. But we also believe it's important that Alex doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her tone was clear. She was calling me a burden, me, their parent, their in-law. Quinn was looking at their plate, as if they wanted to disappear. Alex had their jaw clenched. Burdens, I repeated. Eleanor sighed. I don't want to sound harsh, but at your age, living alone with a limited income, it's natural for Alex to worry about you, to feel that they must take care of you, and that's fine. They are a good child, but we don't want that worry to affect their marriage. Do you understand me? Perfectly, I replied. Eleanor smiled. I'm glad you understand. That's why we wanted to talk to you. Gerald and I have thought about something. She paused dramatically. We could help you financially, give you a small monthly allowance, something that allows you to live more comfortably without Alex having to worry so much. Obviously, it would be modest. We can't work miracles, but it would be a support. I remained silent, watching her, waiting. She continued. And in exchange, we would only ask you to respect Alex and Quinn's space. not to seek them out so much, not to pressure them, to give them the freedom to build their life together without interference. How does that sound? There was the offer, the bribe disguised as charity. They wanted to buy me off. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my child's life, so I wouldn't be a nuisance, so I wouldn't embarrass their precious child with my perceived poverty. Alex exploded. "Parent, that's enough. You don't have to." Eleanor interrupted them. "Alex, calm down, we're talking like adults. Your parent understands, right?" I picked up my napkin, calmly wiped my lips, took a sip of water and let the silence grow. Everyone was looking at me. Eleanor with expectation, Gerald with arrogance, Quinn with shame, Alex with desperation. And then I spoke. My voice came out differently. It was no longer timid. It was no longer small. It was firm, clear and cold. "That's an interesting offer, Eleanor. Truly very generous of you." Eleanor smiled victoriously. "I'm glad you see it that way." I nodded. "But I have a few questions just to understand clearly." Eleanor blinked. "Of course, ask whatever you like." I leaned forward slightly. "How much exactly would you consider a modest monthly allowance?" Eleanor hesitated. "Well, we were thinking about a few hundred, maybe a bit more depending." I nodded. "I see. A few hundred a month for me to disappear from my child's life." Eleanor frowned. "I wouldn't put it like that, but yes," I responded. "That is exactly how you put it." She adjusted in her chair. "Dear, I don't want you to misunderstand. We just want to help." "Of course," I said. "Help. How did you help with the dwelling initial payment?" "How much was that?" Eleanor nodded proudly. "A significant 5-figure sum. Actually, a specific large amount." "Ah, a specific large amount. How generous. And the post-nuptial trip?" "A 5-figure sum," Eleanor said. "It was a multi-week journey through various regions." "Incredible. Unbelievable," I replied. "So you've invested about a substantial 5-figure sum in Alex and Quinn." Eleanor smiled. "Well, when you love your children, you don't hold back." I nodded slowly. "You're right. When you love your children, you don't hold back. But tell me something, Eleanor. All that investment, all that money, did it buy you anything?" Eleanor blinked, confused. "Like, did it buy you respect?" I continued. "Did it buy you real love? Or did it just buy obedience?" The atmosphere changed. Eleanor stopped smiling. "Excuse me," my tone became sharper. "You've spent the entire evening talking about financial matters, about how much things cost, how much you spent, how much you have. But you haven't asked even once how I am, if I'm happy, if something troubles me, if I need company. You have only calculated my worth, and apparently I'm worth a few hundred a month." Eleanor paled. "I didn't." "Yes," I interrupted her. "Yes, you did. Since I arrived, you've been measuring my value with your wallet. And do you know what I discovered, Eleanor? I discovered that the people who only talk about money are the ones who least understand its true value." Gerald intervened. "I think you are misinterpreting my wife's intentions." I looked at him directly. "And what are her intentions? To treat me with pity? To humiliate me throughout dinner? To offer me charity so I'd vanish?" Gerald opened his mouth, but said nothing. Alex was pale. "Parent, please." I looked at them. "No, Alex, please don't. I'm done being quiet." I placed the napkin on the table. I leaned back in my chair. There was no more timidity in my posture, no more shrinking. I looked Eleanor directly in the eyes. She held my gaze for a second, then quickly looked away, uncomfortable. Something had changed, and she felt it. Everyone felt it. Eleanor, you said something very interesting a moment ago. You said you admire individuals who strive alone, who are brave. Eleanor nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then let me ask you something. Have you ever strived alone? Have you ever worked without your partner backing you? Have you ever built something with your own 2 hands, without your family's funds? Eleanor stammered. I have my own accomplishments. Like what? I asked with genuine curiosity. Tell me. Eleanor adjusted her hair. I manage our investments. I oversee holdings. I make important decisions in our enterprises. I nodded. Enterprises your husband built. Properties you acquired together. Investments made with the capital he generated. Or am I wrong? Gerald intervened, annoyed. That's not fair. My wife works just as diligently as I do. Of course, I replied calmly. I don't doubt she works. But there is a difference between managing existing capital and creating it from scratch. Between overseeing an empire you inherited and building it brick by brick, don't you think? Eleanor pressed her lips together. I don't know where you are going with this, dear. Let me explain, I replied. Decades ago, in my early 20s, I was an assistant in a small firm. I earned minimum wage. I lived in a rented room. I ate the most affordable food I could find. And I was alone, completely alone. Alex stared at me. I had never told them this in such detail. I continued. One day I became pregnant. The other parent disappeared. My family turned their backs on me. I had to decide whether to keep going or give up. I chose to keep going. I worked until the last day of my pregnancy. I went back to work a few weeks after Alex was born. A neighbor took care of them during the day. I worked long hours every day. I paused and drank some water. No one spoke. I didn't stay an assistant. I studied at night. I took courses. I learned a foreign language at the public library. I learned financial management, strategy, governance. I became an expert in things no one taught me. All on my own, all while raising a child alone, all while paying rent, sustenance, medical care, and clothing. Eleanor was staring at her plate. Her arrogance was starting to crumble. And you know what happened, Eleanor? I climbed up little by little, from assistant to coordinator, from coordinator to manager, from manager to director. It took me 2 decades. 2 decades of non-stop work, of sacrifices you can't even imagine. But I did it. And do you know how much I earn now? I asked. Eleanor shook her head. A significant sum per month. The silence was absolute, as if someone had hit a pause button on the universe. Alex dropped their utensil. Quinn's eyes went wide. Gerald frowned in disbelief, and Eleanor froze, her mouth slightly open. A significant sum, I repeated. Every month for almost 2 decades. That's approaching a substantial 8-figure sum in gross income over my career, not counting investments, not counting incentives, not counting company ownership. Eleanor blinked several times. No, I don't understand. You earn a significant sum a month. That's right, I replied calmly. I am the regional director of operations for a prominent multinational corporation. I oversee multiple regions. I manage budgets of hundreds of millions. I make decisions that affect more than 10,000 employees. I sign contracts that you couldn't read without legal counsel. And I do it every day. Alex was pale. Parent, why did you never tell me? I looked at them tenderly. Because you didn't need to know, child. Because I wanted you to grow up valuing effort, not money. Because I wanted you to become a person, not an heir. Because money corrupts, and I wasn't going to let it corrupt you. But then, Quinn whispered, why do you live in that small dwelling? Why do you wear simple clothes? Why don't you drive a luxury vehicle? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. Because true wealth isn't shown off. Because I learned that the more you have, the less you need to prove it. I looked at Eleanor. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. That's why I pretended to be humble. That's why I acted like a struggling and unassuming person. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colours. And boy, did I see them, Eleanor. I saw them perfectly. Eleanor was red with shame, rage, and humiliation. This is ridiculous. If you earned so much money, we would know. Alex would know. Why would they believe you are struggling? Because I let them, I replied. Because I never talked about my work. Because I live simply. Because the money I earn, I invest, I save, I multiply. I don't spend it on flashy adornments or showing off in expensive establishments. Gerald cleared his throat. Even so, this doesn't change the fact that you were rude, that you misinterpreted our intentions. Really? I looked at him fixedly. I misinterpreted when you said I was a burden to Alex. I misinterpreted when you offered to pay me a few hundred to disappear from their life. I misinterpreted every condescending comment about my clothes, my work, my life. Gerald didn't answer. Neither did Eleanor. I stood up. Everyone looked at me. Let me tell you something that clearly no one has ever told you. Money does not buy class. It does not buy real education. It does not buy empathy. You have money, perhaps a lot, but you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Eleanor stood up, furious. And you do? You who lied, who deceived us, who made us look like fools. I didn't make you look like fools, I replied coldly. You took care of that all on your own. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you are, and you did it magnificently. Quinn had tears in their eyes. In-law, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted them. You didn't know, but your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me, and they enjoyed it until they discovered that the humble person they scorned has more money than they do, and now they don't know what to do with that information. Eleanor trembled. You have no right. I have every right, I replied. Because I am your in-law's parent, because I deserve respect, not because of my money, not because of my work, but because I am a human being, something you forgot throughout this entire dinner. Alex stood up. Parent, please, let's go. I looked at them. Not yet, child. I'm not finished yet. I looked at Eleanor one last time. You offered to help me with a few hundred a month. Let me make you a counter-offer. I will give you a 7-figure sum right now if you can prove to me that you ever treated someone kindly who didn't have money. Eleanor opened her mouth, closed it, and said nothing. Exactly, I replied. You can't because to you, people are only worth what they have in the bank. And that is the difference between you and me. I built prosperity, you just spend it. I earned respect. You buy it. I have dignity. You have financial accounts. I picked up my old canvas carry-all. I pulled out a black high-tier credit instrument. I dropped it on the table in front of Eleanor. This is my corporate instrument. Unlimited limit. Pay for the entire dinner with a generous gratuity. Consider it a gift from a humble and unassuming parent. Eleanor looked at the card as if it were a poisonous snake, black, shiny, with my name engraved in silver letters. My name, Regional Director. Her hand trembled slightly when she picked it up. She turned it over, observed it, then looked at me. Her eyes no longer held that superior shine. Now there was something different, something I never thought I'd see in her. Fear. "I don't need your funds," she said, her voice broken. "I know," I replied, "but I didn't need your pity either." "And yet you offered it to me throughout the entire dinner, so take it as a gesture of courtesy or good manners, something you clearly didn't learn despite all your travels through various regions." Gerald gently hit the table. "Enough. This is out of control. You are disrespecting us." "Respect," I repeated. "How interesting that you use that word now. Where was your respect when your wife asked if my income was enough to live on? Where was it when she suggested I was a burden to my child? Where was it when she offered to buy me off so I'd disappear?" Gerald clenched his jaw. "Eleanor just wanted to help." I corrected her. Eleanor wanted to control. She wanted to ensure that the humble parent wouldn't ruin her child's perfect image. She wanted to eliminate the weak link in the chain. The problem is she chose the wrong link. I looked at Quinn. Their head was bowed, their hands in their lap, trembling. "Quinn," I said softly. They looked up. Tears were streaming down their cheeks. "I'm sorry," they whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know that my parents—" "Don't finish that sentence," I interrupted them. "Because you did know. Maybe you didn't know about my financial status, but you knew how your parents are. You know how they treat people they consider inferior, and you did nothing to stop them." Quinn sobbed. "I wanted to say something, but they are my parents." "I know," I replied. "And Alex is my child. And yet I let them make their own decisions. I let them choose their life, their spouse, their path, because that is how you love. With freedom, not with control, not with money, not with manipulation." Alex came closer to me. "Parent, forgive me. Please forgive me for never asking, for assuming, for thinking you were—" Their voice cracked. I hugged them. "You don't have to apologize, child. I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent, to value the right things, not to depend on me financially, to build your own life. But you made me feel like I had to protect you," Alex said, "that I had to worry about you, that you were fragile." "I know," I replied, "and it wasn't wrong that you thought that, because that's how you learn to care, to worry about others, to be empathetic. Those are lessons money can't buy." Alex hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Eleanor was still standing rigid, watching the scene with a mixture of confusion and contained rage. "This doesn't change anything," she finally said. "You lied. You deceived us. You came here with hidden intentions. You acted in bad faith." "That's true," I nodded. "I acted. I pretended to be something I'm not. Exactly what you do every day." "What is that supposed to mean?" Gerald asked. "It means that you hide behind your money, behind your adornments, behind your trips, behind everything you can buy, but inside you are empty. You don't have deep conversations, you don't have real interests. You have nothing to offer beyond a financial account." Eleanor gave a dry, bitter laugh. "Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy." "Perhaps," I replied, "but my lie exposed the truth." Your truth. And now you can't hide. Now you know that I saw you, that I felt every comment, that I stored every insult disguised as advice, and that I will never forget it. The server timidly approached. Excuse me, would you like anything else? Gerald shook his head abruptly. Just the bill. The server nodded and disappeared. Eleanor sat back down, defeated. Her posture was no longer elegant. It was the posture of someone who had just lost something important. And it wasn't money. It was power. Dear, she said in a softer, less aggressive voice, I don't want this to ruin the relationship between our families. Alex and Quinn love each other. They have a life together. We can't let this... I interrupted her. Let this what? Let this ruin your plans. Let this expose what you really think. It's too late for that, Eleanor. The damage is done. But we can fix it, she insisted. We can start over. No, I cut her off firmly. We can't, because now I know who you are and you know who I am. And that truth cannot be erased with empty apologies or fake smiles. You treated me like garbage and you did it with pleasure because you thought you could. Gerald cleared his throat. You were the one who came here lying. You provoked this situation. You're right. I nodded. I provoked this because I needed to know. I needed to confirm what I already suspected, that you are not good people, that your money doesn't make you better, that you are exactly the kind of people who despise others for not having the same things. Eleanor wiped away a tear. We are not bad people. Maybe not, I replied, but you are definitely not good, and there is a huge difference between those two things. The server returned with the bill and left it in the center of the table. No one touched it. Eleanor looked at my black card, still in her hands, then looked at me. I'm not going to use your card, she said. We will pay our own bill, as we always do. Perfect, I replied. Then keep that card as a souvenir, as a reminder that not everything is as it seems, that the person you scorned all night has more than you will ever have. And I'm not just talking about money. Eleanor put the card down on the table. I don't want it. I don't want your moral lecture either. I pushed it back toward her. Keep it anyway, because something tells me you'll need it. Someday you'll run into someone like me, someone who pretends to be less than they are, and you'll make the same mistake again because people like you never learn. Gerald took out his wallet, pulled out several credit instruments, all golden, all shiny. He chose one and put it on the bill. The server took it and left. No one spoke during those waiting minutes. The silence was thick, uncomfortable, and heavy. Quinn cried quietly. Alex held my hand. Eleanor stared at the wall. Gerald checked his communication device to avoid eye contact. The server returned. Sir, your card was declined. Gerald looked up abruptly. How was it declined? The server repeated. Declined. Do you have another form of payment? Gerald turned red. That's impossible. That card has an extremely high limit. It must be a system error. The server shrugged. I can try again if you like. Gerald handed him another card. The server left. Eleanor nervously looked at her husband. What happened? I don't know, Gerald replied, irritated. It must be a financial institution error. Maybe they froze the account for security. It happens sometimes when you travel. I nodded with feigned understanding. Of course, those things happen. How inconvenient. The server returned again. I'm sorry, sir. This one was also declined. Gerald stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm calling the institution right now." He stormed out of the establishment. Eleanor remained seated, ashamed, humiliated. "This has never happened to us," she murmured. "Never." "What terrible timing," I commented, without emotion. Alex looked at the bill. "Parent, I can—" "No," I interrupted them. "You are not paying for anything." I took out my wallet, a simple old leather wallet. I pulled out another card. This one was not black. It was transparent, made of heavy metal. A card that a very small percentage of people in the world possess. I put it on the table in front of Eleanor. She looked at it. Her eyes widened. She recognized what it was. "That's a top-tier, exclusive card." "That's right," I replied. "An exclusive invitation, minimum annual spending requirement of a substantial 6-figure sum, a 5-figure annual fee just for having it, and benefits you can never imagine." Eleanor said nothing. The server took the card carefully, as if it was something sacred. He returned in less than 2 minutes. "Thank you, my title. Everything is settled. Would you like the receipt?" "It's not necessary," I replied. The server nodded and left. Eleanor continued looking at the space where the card had been. I stood up, took my old wallet, my canvas carry-all, and looked at Eleanor one last time. The dinner was delicious. "Thank you for the recommendation of the place, and thank you for showing me exactly who you are. You saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and many future disappointments." Eleanor finally looked up. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from contained rage. "This doesn't end here," she said, her voice trembling. "You can't just humiliate us and walk out as if nothing happened. Quinn is our child. Alex is our in-law. We will still be family. You will have to see us." "You are right." I smiled. "I will have to see you at celebrations, holidays, and family gatherings. But now I will see you differently. I will no longer wonder what you think of me. I already know. And you will know that I know. And you will live with that. Every time you see me, every time you pretend to be kind, you will remember this evening." Gerald returned to the table. His communication device was in his hand. His face was pale. "There's a problem with the accounts," he said. "A temporary block for security. It will be resolved soon." He looked at the table. "Did they pay already?" "Yes," Eleanor replied, without looking at him. "She paid." Gerald looked at me. His pride was shattered. "Thank you," he murmured. It was barely audible. "You're welcome," I replied. "That's what family's for, isn't it? To help each other, especially when someone needs a small allowance, say a few hundred, or in this case, a slightly higher amount, which is what this dinner cost." Gerald closed his eyes. Eleanor clenched her fists in her lap. Alex approached. "Parent, let's go, please. It's enough." I looked at them. "You're right. It is enough." I turned to Quinn. They were still crying quietly. "Quinn," I said softly. They lifted their head. "You are not to blame for how your parents are. No one chooses their family, but you do choose how you act, how you treat others, how you will raise your own children someday." Quinn nodded through their tears. "I'm sorry," they whispered again. "Don't apologize again," I told them. "Just learn that money does not define people, that humility is not weakness, that respecting others costs nothing, and that if you ever have children, teach them to see the heart of people, not their financial account." Quinn sobbed harder. Alex hugged them. Eleanor looked away. Gerald checked his communication device again. Avoiding all eye contact, I headed for the exit. I took a few steps, then stopped and turned around one last time. "Ah, Eleanor, one more thing." She looked at me. "Do you remember when you said you speak multiple languages?" Eleanor frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just curious," I replied. "In which of those languages did you learn to be kind? Because clearly it wasn't in any of them." Eleanor opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Exactly," I said. "You can speak a multitude of different languages and still not say anything worth listening to." I walked out of the establishment. Alex walked beside me. The fresh night air hit my face. I breathed deeply. I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off me. Not a physical weight, but an emotional one. The weight of pretending, of tolerating, of keeping silent. Alex took my arm. "Parent, are you okay?" "Perfectly fine," I replied. "Better than ever. And you, Alex?" Alex sighed. "I don't know. I'm processing everything. I can't believe you never told me about your work, about your money, about everything you accomplished." I stopped and looked them in the eyes. "Does it bother you?" They quickly shook their head. "No, of course not. I'm proud, incredibly proud. But I also feel foolish, blind." "You are not foolish," I told them. "You simply saw what I wanted you to see. And I did it on purpose because I needed you to grow up without depending on me, without feeling you had an economic safety net waiting for you. I needed you to fight, to work, to value everything you achieved on your own." Alex nodded. "I understand, but now I also understand why you never complained, why you never asked for help, why you always seemed so calm, because you needed nothing." I smiled. "I needed many things, child. Only none of them could be bought with money. I needed to see you grow up, see you become a good person, see you make the right decisions. And I achieved that, even marrying Quinn." They asked in a weak voice. "Even marrying Quinn," I replied. "They are not their parents. They can learn. They can change, but that depends on them and on you, on how you build your relationship, on what values you choose to follow." Alex remained silent, processing, thinking. A rideshare stopped in front of us. I had called for one as we left. I opened the door. Alex stopped me. "Parent, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you do it? Why did you come pretending to be humble? Why didn't you just tell them the truth from the beginning?" I closed the rideshare door. I turned to them. "Because I needed to know, child. I needed to confirm if my suspicions were correct, if Quinn's family was really as I imagined, and unfortunately I was right." Alex lowered their gaze. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize for them," I told them. "But you do have to decide what kind of partner you want to be, what kind of parent you want to be someday." "What do you mean?" they asked. "I mean that you have just seen two very different ways of handling money and power. Your in-laws' way and mine. They use it to control, to humiliate, to feel superior. I use it to have freedom, to help without showing off, to live peacefully. You decide which path to follow." Alex slowly nodded. "I understand." I opened the rideshare door again and got in. I rolled down the window. Alex came closer. "Parent, one last question. Tell me, are you ever going to forgive Eleanor and Gerald?" I thought about it for a moment. "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting," I replied. "Nor does it mean allowing it to happen again. I might forgive them someday, when I see a real change, when they start seeing people as people, not as numbers. But until then, I will simply be polite, distant, and extremely cautious. "And me?" Alex asked. "Do you forgive me for not asking, for assuming, for allowing this dinner to happen?" I looked at them tenderly. "Child, there is nothing to forgive. You did what you thought was right. You wanted your family to meet. That is beautiful. What happened afterward was not your fault. It was theirs and a little bit mine too, because I decided to play their game." Alex smiled weakly. "You prevailed." "I prevailed." I nodded. "But I don't feel victorious. I feel tired and sad because I confirmed something I didn't want to confirm. That some people will never change. That some families are broken even if they have money. That there are voids no financial account can fill." The rideshare operator cleared their throat. "Ma'am, should we proceed?" "Yes," I replied. "Give me 1 second." I looked at Alex one last time. "Go to Quinn. Talk to them. Listen to them. Support them. But also be honest. Tell them how you felt tonight. Tell them what you expect from their family and from them. Because if you don't establish boundaries now, this will happen again and again." "I will," Alex promised. "I love you, parent, and I mean it more now than ever, because now I know who you really are, and you are incredible." I smiled. "I love you too, child. I always have. I always will. No matter how much money I have or don't have, because love has no price, and that is a lesson Eleanor and Gerald will never learn." Alex stepped away from the rideshare. I gave a signal to the operator. "Can we proceed?" The rideshare started. I looked out the window. I saw Alex walking back toward the establishment, their shoulders slumped, thoughtful. They were probably going back to find Quinn, to face their in-laws, to have difficult conversations, and I felt proud because that meant they were maturing, they were learning, they were choosing to be better than the example they had just witnessed. The rideshare sped through the city's illuminated streets. I closed my eyes and thought about everything that had happened, every word, every look, every moment of tension, and I wondered if I had done the right thing, if I had been too harsh, too cruel, too vengeful. But then I remembered every disguised insult, every condescending comment, every look of disdain, and I knew that no, I hadn't been to anything. I had simply been honest. Finally, the rideshare was crossing the empty streets of the night. The lights of the buildings flashed quickly past the window. I opened my old canvas carry-all and took out my communication device, a simple phone, nothing ostentatious, nothing attention-grabbing. I had 3 unread messages, one from my assistant asking about an upcoming meeting, another from a colleague congratulating me on a closed agreement, and one from an unknown number. I opened the unknown message. It was from Quinn. "In-law, please forgive me. I didn't know my parents would be like that. I am ashamed. I need to talk to you. Please." I looked at the message for a long time. I thought about responding. Then I decided not to. No, they still needed time. They needed it too. Words rushed out of guilt rarely mean anything real. True changes take time, reflection, and consistent action. I put the phone aside. The rideshare operator looked at me through the rearview mirror. "Excuse me for asking, ma'am. Is everything okay?" I looked up at them. "Yes, everything is fine. Why?" "Well, you got in very quietly. And normally the people who come out of that restaurant are happy, talking about how delicious the dinner was. You came out as if you had been in a conflict." I smiled slightly. "Something like that. Was it that obvious?" They shrugged. "I've been driving for 2 decades. I've seen it all. intoxicated people, people fighting, couples separating, families arguing, and you have that look of someone who just said something they'd been keeping inside for years. You're perceptive, I told them. It's my job, they replied. Plus, it helps pass the time. Do you want to talk about it? You don't have to, but sometimes it helps to tell things to a stranger, someone who isn't going to judge you, someone who doesn't know you. I thought about their offer. It was tempting, but I shook my head. Thank you, but I think I've talked enough for today. They nodded. I understand, but let me tell you something. Whatever happened in there, you did the right thing. I know because you are calm. You are not crying. You are not screaming. You are processing. And that means you spoke your truth. And the truth always brings peace, even if it hurts. Their words surprised me. They were an older individual, perhaps in their 60s, with greying hair and working hands, a simple person like the one I pretended to be. Do you believe in the truth? I asked them. I believe in honesty, they replied. Not always the absolute truth, because the truth changes depending on who tells it. But honesty doesn't. Honesty is saying things the way you feel them without masks, without lies, even if it hurts, even if it makes things awkward, even if it costs you something. I nodded. You're right. My spouse always told me I was too direct, they continued, that I said things without a filter, that I hurt people without meaning to, and maybe they were right, but they also told me that they never doubted me because they knew that what came out of my mouth was real, not calculated, not manipulated, just real. I smiled. They sound like a good person. They were, they replied. They passed away some years ago. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. They shook their head. Don't be sorry. We had decades together. Decades of honesty, of disagreements, of reconciliations, of laughs, of tears. And not once did I go to sleep wondering what they really thought, because they always said it. And so did I. That is a gift. You're right, I murmured. It's a gift. The rideshare stopped at a signal. Can I ask you something personal? The rideshare operator asked. Go ahead. Are you wealthy? The question took me by surprise, not because of the question itself, but because of the direct way they asked it. Why do you ask that? Because I picked you up from a high-cost establishment, but you dress like someone who shops at discount stores. You have an old bag, worn-out shoes, but you talk like an executive. You move like someone with power, and you paid for my ride with crisp new bills that you pulled out of a wallet that looks 2 decades old. Observant, I commented. Part of the job, they repeated. Then am I? It depends on how you define wealthy, I replied. If you are talking about money, yes, I have enough, more than enough. If you are talking about happiness, I also have peace, health, a child I love, work I am passionate about. That makes me wealthy in many ways. They nodded, satisfied. I knew there was something. Truly wealthy people don't need to prove it. The light changed to green. The rideshare moved forward. And what happened in that establishment? They asked. If it's not too indiscreet. I pretended to be humble, I replied. To see how they would treat me. They let out a loud laugh. Seriously, that is brilliant. And how did they treat you? Like trash, I said without emotion. They humiliated me. They offered me charity. They treated me as if I were invisible and less than human. They stopped laughing. I'm sorry. That must have hurt a little, I admitted. But it also confirmed something for me. that I was right about those people, that they weren't worth my time, that they didn't deserve my respect, and now they know it. Now they know who I am, and they will have to live with that shame. The rideshare operator whistled softly. That must have been epic. It was. I smiled. It definitely was. We arrived at my building, an older, middle-class building. Nothing luxurious, nothing impressive, but comfortable, safe home. The rideshare operator parked and looked at the building. "You live here?" "I live here," I confirmed. They shook their head, astonished. "You truly are special. Most people with money move to expensive areas, to buildings with doormen, private security, fitness centers, and aquatic features. You live like a normal person." "I am a normal person," I replied. "I just have more money than most, but that doesn't make me different. It doesn't make me better. Money is just a tool, not an identity." They smiled. "I wish more people thought that way. The world would be better." I took out my wallet. "How much is it?" "A specific, moderate amount," they replied. I gave them a bill of a higher denomination. "Keep the change, ma'am. This is too much." "It's not," I said. "You listened to me. You gave me perspective. You reminded me that there are still good people. That is worth more than the difference." They took the bill carefully. "Thank you. Truly, thank you." "Thank you," I replied. "And take care of that honesty. It's rare. It's valuable. Don't lose it." "I won't," they promised. I got out of the rideshare, closed the door. They rolled down the window. "Ma'am, one last thing. Tell me whatever happened tonight. Don't regret it. Don't feel sorry, because people like you, the people who speak the truth, even if it hurts, are the ones who change the world. Little by little, one conversation at a time." I smiled. "Thank you. I will remember that." The rideshare drove away. I stood in front of my building, looking up at my upper floor window. The light was off, dark, silent, waiting for me. I entered the building and walked up the stairs. I never used the elevator. I preferred to walk, to stay active. I reached my door. I took out my keys, the same keys I had had for a decade and a half. I opened the door. The apartment was cold, empty. I turned on the light. Everything was in its place. The simple living area, the small kitchen, the dining area with mismatched chairs, the walls without expensive artwork. And I felt at peace because this place was mine, truly mine, not bought to impress, not decorated to show off, simply a space where I could be myself without masks, without pretensions. I took off my old shoes, took off the wrinkled grey garment, and put on comfortable clothes and old, soft, familiar sleepwear. I made myself some warm beverage, sat on the sofa, and turned on the entertainment device. News, nothing interesting. I turned it off. I sat in silence, thinking, processing, feeling, and for the first time in many years I felt completely free. Free from pretending, free from being silent, free from tolerating, free from being less than I was, because that evening I didn't just expose Eleanor and Gerald. I also liberated myself from expectations, from judgment, from the need to hide who I was, and that was invaluable, more than any amount in my financial account. My communication device vibrated. Another message, this time from Alex. "Parent, did you get home safely?" I smiled. I quickly replied, "Yes, child, I arrived perfectly fine. I'm home resting." Their reply was immediate. "I love you. Thank you for everything, for being who you are, for teaching me, for never giving up." I closed my eyes. I felt a tear roll down my cheek, not from sadness, from relief, from love, from gratitude. I replied, I love you too, always. I put the phone aside. I drank my warm beverage. I looked around my simple apartment, my sanctuary, my truth, and I smiled, because at the end of the day, it didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter how high I had climbed in my career. The only thing that mattered was this moment, this peace, this honesty with myself. I woke up early on the day after, as always. Decades of working had trained me to rise with the sun, even though it was my day off. My body no longer knew how to sleep late. I prepared strong, dark, warm beverage. I sat by the window with a hot mug in my hands. I watched the city wake up, the vendors opening their stalls, people walking somewhere. Life continued as always, indifferent to personal dramas. My communication device started ringing. It was a familiar number. Alex, I answered. Good morning, child. Their voice sounded tired. Parent, I need to talk to you. Did something happen? A lot, they replied. Last night Quinn and I talked for hours. Their parents were there too. It was intense. I took a sip of warm beverage. Tell me. Alex sighed deeply. After you left, I went back to the establishment. Eleanor and Gerald were still there waiting for their cards to work. It was humiliating for them. Quinn was devastated, crying, and I was furious, more furious than I have been in years. I waited in silence. They continued. I told them everything I felt during that dinner. I told them I was ashamed of them, that they treated my parent like garbage, that their behavior was unacceptable, that I wouldn't tolerate it ever again. And what did they say? I asked. At first, Eleanor tried to defend herself. She said they just wanted to protect Quinn, that they wanted to make sure I had a stable family, that they didn't have bad intentions. Gerald said I was exaggerating, that it had been a normal dinner, that your reaction was disproportionate. I squeezed the mug in my hands. Typical. But then Quinn spoke, Alex continued. They told their parents that they were wrong, that they had been cruel, that they had seen every comment, every look, every insult, and that they were ashamed to be their child at that moment. Their voice cracked. Parent, I had never seen Quinn confront their parents like that. I smiled slightly. That's good. It means they're waking up. Eleanor got hysterical, Alex said. She started yelling that Quinn was ungrateful, that they had sacrificed everything for them, that they had given them the best life, that they had no right to judge them. Gerald backed her up. He said we were being manipulated by you, that you had planned everything to make them look bad. I let out a dry laugh. Of course, it's my fault. That's what made them angriest, Alex said. I told them they were right, that you did plan everything, but that they fell into the trap because that's really how they are, because they really treat people they consider inferior badly, that you just gave them the opportunity to show themselves and they did it perfectly. Well said, I murmured. Thanks. I learned it from you. There was a silence. Then Alex continued. Parent, I need you to know something. Last night, I made a decision. Quinn and I are going to set boundaries with their parents. We are not going to cut off the relationship, but we are going to set clear rules. No comments about money, no comparisons, no attempts to control our lives. And if they can't respect that, then they will have to accept the consequences. And did they accept? I asked. No, they replied. They left furious. They said we were ungrateful, that we would regret it someday, that when we needed help they wouldn't be there. Gerald said he was going to reconsider his inheritance. Eleanor said Quinn had chosen the wrong family. I shook my head. Emotional blackmail, the last resort of people without arguments. Exactly, Alex said. But it didn't work. Quinn stood firm. I did too. They left the establishment without saying goodbye, without looking back. And honestly, parent, I felt relief, as if a huge weight had been lifted off me. That's because it was, I told them. You lifted the weight of living under their expectations, under their control. Now you can build your life however you want, not as they dictate. Thank you, parent, Alex said, their voice emotional. Thank you for doing what you did last night. I know it was difficult. I know it was awkward. But we needed to see it. I needed to see who they really were. And Quinn needed to see that there was another way to live. A more honest, more authentic way. You are welcome, child. I only did what I believed was right. There is something else, Alex said. Quinn wants to come see you. They want to apologize in person. They want to talk to you. Not as an in-law trying to look good, but as a person trying to learn. What do you think? I thought for a moment. Tell them they can come, but not today. Give them a few days to process, to think carefully about what they want to say. Rushed apologies are hollow. The ones that take time are real. I'll tell them, Alex promised. Parent, one more question. How are you doing after all of this? How do you feel? I looked out the window. The sun was fully up now. The day had officially begun. I'm well, I replied. Better than well. I'm at peace because I finally said everything I needed to say, and I don't regret anything. I'm glad to hear that, Alex said. I love you. I love you too. Rest. I'll see you soon. I hung up the phone, finished my warm beverage, and stood up. I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. Go for a walk aimlessly, without rushing, just walking and thinking. I dressed in comfortable clothes, old denim, a simple top, worn athletic shoes. I grabbed my keys and went out. The streets were full of life, families strolling, children running, couples holding hands, vendors offering food. The aroma of fresh baked goods filled the air. I walked through the nearby public green space and sat on a bench watching people pass by, and I realized something. Most of these people probably didn't have much money. They lived with just enough, worked hard, and struggled every day. But they smiled, hugged each other, and enjoyed the moment. And then I thought about Eleanor and Gerald, with all their money, their holdings, their trips, their adornments. Were they really happy? Or were they just busy trying to prove something, trying to fill a void with material things, trying to buy value, respect, and love? Things that could never be bought. An older woman sat down next to me. "Good morning," she said with a smile. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she commented. "Very beautiful," I nodded. She took sustenance from her bag and started feeding the birds. "I come here every day of rest," she said. "It's my moment of peace before the week gets chaotic again." "I understand that," I said. I needed a moment of peace too. "Difficult week?" she asked. "Something like that," I replied. "More like a difficult night," she nodded wisely. "Sometimes a single night can change everything." "You're right," I murmured. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice?" "Go ahead," I smiled. She pointed to the birds. "Look at those birds. Some are big, some are small. Some have pretty feathers, others have scruffy feathers, but They all eat from the same sustenance. They all share the same space. None of them thinks they are better than the others. That's a nice metaphor, I said. It's not a metaphor, she replied. It's the truth. Humans are the only animals that invent false hierarchies, that measure value with external things. Birds don't do that. They just live. They just are. We should learn from them. I smiled broadly. You are completely right. I should give classes to some people I know. She laughed. Oh, child, at my age, I don't give classes. I just observe and share what I see. But most people don't listen. They are too busy running, acquiring, competing, forgetting that in the end we all end up in the same place, with or without money, with or without adornments, with or without holdings. We all end up turning into dust. How philosophical, I commented. How realistic, she corrected. I have lived for many decades. I have seen it all, and I can tell you something. The most miserable people I met were the ones who had the most, because it was never enough. They always wanted more. They always competed. They always compared. And they died without having truly lived, without having truly loved, without having truly been. Her words resonated deep within me, as if she had touched upon something I already knew but hadn't articulated. Thank you, I told her, for sharing that. She patted my hand. You're welcome, child. And remember, it doesn't matter how much you have or don't have. What matters is how you treat others, because that is what remains. That is what transcends. That is the only legacy worth having. She slowly stood up, put her empty bag away, and waved goodbye. Have a beautiful day of rest. You, too, I replied. I watched her walk away, a small woman hunched with age, wearing old clothes and worn shoes, but with more wisdom than all the Eleanors and Geralds in the world combined. And I felt grateful for that encounter, for that reminder, for that truth, and powerful. I stayed on the bench for a while longer, thinking, feeling, processing everything that had happened, and I came to a conclusion. I didn't regret anything, no word, no action, because everything I did last night was necessary. It was liberating, it was honest, and honesty, even when it hurts, is always the right path. A few days passed before Quinn knocked on my door, a few days of silence, processing and reflection. When I heard the signal that afternoon, I knew who it was. I opened the door. There they were, without makeup. Their hair pulled back in a simple tie-back, dressed in denim and a plain top, no adornments, no heels. They looked vulnerable, real, different from the person I had seen in the establishment. In-law, they said in a low voice. May I come in? I stepped aside. Go ahead. They entered slowly, looking around, observing my apartment with new eyes. The simple living area, the old furniture, the walls without expensive decor. They sat on the sofa when I pointed to it. I sat across from them, waiting without pressuring, letting them find their words. I don't know where to start, they finally said. Start where you feel ready, I replied. They took a deep breath. I came to apologize, but not just with words. I came to explain why my parents are the way they are, and why I stayed silent for so long. I listened in silence. Quinn continued, their voice trembling. My parents grew up in poverty in a small community in a distant land, without modern conveniences, without adequate resources, working in the fields since they were children. They saw their own parents pass away young due to lack of medical care, lack of funds. They went hungry, they suffered, and they promised themselves they would never be poor again. They would do whatever it took to get out of there. I nodded. I understand. That explains a lot. They worked relentlessly, Quinn continued. They saved every penny. They immigrated looking for opportunities. Gerald built his enterprise from scratch, literally from scratch. And when they started earning money, they never forgot what it was like not to have it. That's why they talk about it so much. That's why they measure everything by that standard. Because to them, money means survival. It means security. It means never going back to that dark place. It's understandable, dear. Trauma does strange things to people, Quinn nodded. But that doesn't excuse how they treated you. I know. And I want you to know that I saw everything, every comment, every look, every insult. And I stayed silent because I've been doing that whole life. Staying silent, accepting, letting them control everything because they taught me that contradicting them was a betrayal. It was ungrateful. And now, I asked. Now I understand I was wrong, they replied. That love is not control. That family is not blind obedience. That I can love them and still not agree with them. Alex helped me see it. You helped me see it. That evening at the establishment, when you revealed yourself, when you told them everything, it was as if a blindfold had been taken off my eyes. Quinn wiped their tears. I always knew something was wrong. I always felt that the way they measured people was incorrect, but I convinced myself that it was me, that I was too sensitive, that I didn't understand the world. But you showed me that no, there is another way to live, a way where money does not define your worth, where humility is strength, where authenticity is wealth. I took a sip of water. Quinn, I didn't come that night to change you. I came to protect myself, to know who I was dealing with. I know, they replied, and I thank you for that because your brutal honesty saved me. It saved me from becoming my mother, from perpetuating that cycle, from teaching my future children that people are valued by what they have. I don't want that. I don't want to be that. And your parents, I asked, how are they after all this? Quinn sighed, furious, hurt, humiliated. Eleanor hasn't spoken to me in a few days. Gerald sent me a message saying I had disappointed him, that I had chosen strangers over my own blood, that I would regret it some day. They paused. And you know what's strange? I don't feel bad. I feel free. That's good. It means you made the right decision. Quinn nodded. Alex and I set boundaries. We told them they can be a part of our lives, but only if they respect us, if they respect our decisions, if they stop trying to control us with money or emotional blackmail. And if they can't do that, then they will have to accept a distant relationship. How did they take that? I asked. Badly, Quinn replied. Eleanor said we were ungrateful, that they had sacrificed everything for me. Gerald threatened to disinherit me, to cut off all financial aid, as if that were the only thing we cared about, as if our love for them depended on their money. And that's when I realized they really believe that. They really think their value is in their wallet. It's sad, I commented. Very sad, Quinn agreed, because they have so much and enjoy nothing. They just accumulate, compete, show off. But they never stop to ask themselves if they are happy, if they have peace, if they have real connections with people. They just count their holdings and feel victorious, while inside they are empty. They were silent for a moment. Then they looked at me directly. In-law, I want to ask you for something. Tell me. I want to learn from you. I want you to teach me how to live with dignity, how to be wealthy without needing to prove it, how to have peace in the midst of chaos, how to be strong without being cruel, because that night I saw something in you that I never saw in my parents. I saw class. I saw real power. I saw a person who didn't need to shout to be heard. I smiled tenderly. Quinn, I can't teach you that. That is learned by living, by making mistakes, by falling, by getting up. The only thing I can do is share my experience and tell you that the path is not easy. You will face criticism, judgment, people who won't understand why you live differently. But if you stay true to yourself, if you live according to your values, you will find peace, and that peace is worth more than any amount of money. I want to try, Quinn said. I want to be better, not just for Alex, but for me, because I deserve to live without that constant pressure, without that need to impress, without that fear of not being enough. Then do it, I told them, but don't do it all at once. Do it little by little. Start by questioning your habits, your acquisitions, your motivations. Ask yourself before every decision, is this for me or for others? Does this bring me peace or just appearance? Quinn nodded, taking mental notes. And my parents, do you think they will ever change? I looked at them with honesty. I don't know. Change requires you to recognize a problem, and they don't believe they have one. They believe the world is wrong, that people are ungrateful, that they are victims. Until they see that, change is not possible. But you can change. You can break the cycle. I will, they promised, with Alex's help. And I hope with your guidance too. You don't need my guidance, I replied. You just need your internal compass, that voice that tells you what is right and what is wrong, that voice you silenced for years to please your parents. Listen to it, trust it, follow it. Quinn wiped away the last tears. Thank you, in-law, for everything, for your patience, for your honesty, for not giving up on us. There is nothing to thank me for, I said. Just promise me one thing. When you have children, teach them the value of people, not the price. Teach them empathy, humility, and kindness. Things that don't cost money, but are worth everything. I promise, Quinn said firmly. I promise with all my heart. We hugged. A real, warm, honest hug. No acting, no masks. Just two people connecting as human beings. Quinn left an hour later, lighter, freer, with hope in their eyes. I closed the door behind them. I sat back down on my sofa, looked around my simple apartment and smiled, because this was enough. This was everything, an honest space, an authentic life, real relationships. I didn't need more. I never needed more. My communication device rang. It was a message from Alex. Parent, Quinn told me about their visit. Thank you for welcoming them, for listening to them, for giving them a chance. I love you more than words can express. I replied simply, I love you too, child, always. I put the phone aside. I sat by the window. I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. And in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Real wealth is not about how much you have. It's about how much you enjoy what you have, how much peace you feel, how many genuine people surround you, how many times you can look in the mirror and be proud of who you are. Eleanor and Gerald had millions, but I had this tranquility, this authenticity, this pure love for my child, and that made me infinitely richer than them. I never pretended to be humble again. I didn't need to. I had learned what I needed to learn. I had seen what I needed to see, and I had liberated what I needed to liberate. Eleanor and Gerald continued to be who they were, wealthy in money, poor in spirit. But that was no longer my problem. I had spoken my truth. I had set my boundaries. I had protected my peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend who I was. I was simply my title: parent, executive, individual, survivor, fighter, wealthy in every sense that truly mattered. And that was more than enough. It was everything.